What does your wife want from you? That is a good question. Before I get into the answer to that, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I'm Dennis, and I run a couple sites all focused on helping married men get better at being a man, a husband, and a father. And it's actually a pretty simple, straightforward process. But don't confuse simple with easy. All right, so what does your wife want from you? In a nutshell, the unpopular answer is that your wife wants you to be a man. She wants you to be a man. And not in some caricature 80s, 90s Hollywood action star kind of way, but in, I would say, an ancient, deep, masculine way. And if you followed any of my other videos, I talk a lot about masculinity. And the reason I talk about masculinity is because masculinity is kind of a forgotten art in 2020 or 2021 now. So I talk a lot about it because it's fundamental to being a good man, and then a good husband, and then a good father. And part of one thing that happens is when people get married is attraction dies, right? And masculinity is a big part of that. And in fact, I got a resource down in the description below. 3 videos on how attraction works and what you can do to start getting back to generating attraction in your marriage with your wife. So your wife wants you to be a man. Okay, what does that mean? Well, that means to be strong. It means to be strong. It means to be courageous. It means to have ambitions, to set a goal and go after it, to have a mission. This is all stuff I've talked about before, and I imagine that I'll continue to talk about because it is something that's not talked about enough. So to be strong, it means physically, it means you need to optimize your physical strength. And it doesn't mean you need to be the strongest guy in the gym. It means you need to optimize your strength, whatever you've got, to optimize that to be as strong as you can. It means to be courageous. And there's 2 kinds of courage here. There's physical courage and there's moral courage. And physical courage is often is a shorter amount of time, right? Like something happens, a situation happens, and you have a small window where you can choose to act, and you need a little bit of courage to get going. And then usually courage is not so important. And you need to be able to do that as a man. When the time comes, you need to be able to exert that courage and to apply it to the world. But maybe the more difficult courage to master is moral courage. And this is standing up for what you believe to be true. This is standing up for what you believe to be true. In the face of whatever society is going to throw at you. Because as society's kind of, the way I see it, society's fracturing in slow motion. And we see it in sort of the way that subgroups are becoming more important than individuals. Like group identity is becoming more important than individuals or of the society as a whole. And that's just going to continue, I think, until it can't continue, and then it's going to be a big mess. That's just my prediction. But I think it'll be good after that. I think we're going to have a reversion to the mean. We're going to have things are going to whip back to what some people might call traditional way of life and way of looking at the world. So, and that's where I'm at right now. And I went on a long journey to get here, I've been through a lot of stuff to sort of come back to the basics, back to the roots. And it's hard sometimes to be courageous and to stand up for what I believe in the face of people not wanting to hear what I have to say. So that's important. And that's one thing probably above all that your wife wants is for you to be courageous. And the reason that is because that is in some regards the fundamental. If you can't be courageous, then what's the point of being strong? If you can't be courageous, what's the point of having a goal? You'll probably never go after it anyway. What's the point of having a mission if you're not courageous? Your mission probably won't be big enough to impact the world, because if you're not being courageous, then you probably didn't set set your sights on something big and grand and going for it. So above all, your wife probably wants you to be courageous. And sometimes that means standing up to her. Now, I won't say exactly what that means or what that looks like for every individual, but at some point, every person in the world, you, me, and the fence post, everybody needs to be stood up to. Everybody gets out of line from time to time. Everybody. And it's your responsibility as a husband is when your wife gets out of line to hold the line, to be courageous in the face of her, whatever she's doing. So I would say I would boil it down to courage. So if you're going to take one thing away, is be courageous. And what does that mean? Practically, it means saying things that you don't know how it's going to work out if you say them. You believe them strongly, you know them to be true, and you're not sure how it's going to work out, but you say them anyway. That's courage. Taking an action. You see a situation and you don't know, there's no social script for how it's supposed to go down. Be courageous and do what you feel is right. Be courageous, start being courageous, and I bet you'll start getting different kinds of responses from the world, but more importantly, from your wife. I'm Dennis. I'll see you guys later. Like and subscribe.